Hello, friends. So I'm back from the Samhain ceremony that I went to this evening, and I wanted to tell you about it. It's part of the Samhain series. So if you've been listening, you know that I typically do not go to group events when it comes to my spirituality. And part of that is because I came from a very strict religious tradition, and I find that a lot of those things remind me of church. If I want to go to church, I'll go to church. So I typically don't like those things. And um, so I was a little apprehensive, but I did some divination, and All Point said, suck it up, Buttercup. Go and check something new out. You have an opportunity this year that you don't normally have, since you can't march in this parade that you're normally in. So go and check it out. See what it's about. And be open. Be open. Don't be judgy. Be open. So I went. And I went early so that I could volunteer for a little bit. And people were so lovely. And it's such a beautiful place. This Columcille is a standing stones environment. Completely beautiful. There are two chapels. The one I just am so in love with. And in fact, I spent most of my time again there, which is usually what I do when I'm there. And it was lovely. So there were luminaries throughout, and the way that the ceremony was constructed, it was you'd start at the center. They all have names, but I don't know what they are, but the center one, and then you would walk to all the different stones, and they all have different names. And there's the serious stone, and there's the stone, and each stone something happened. So there either was a prayer or a song or a story, chanting, things like that. And unfortunately, because my foot is still pretty raw, I was struggling because not only could I not see, and I was alone. Pennsylvania is very rocky, and which is how I got into this position. And after like the third station, I was barely able to walk. So fortunately, I was near the chapel that I like, and Spirit was like, "Go to the chapel." So I went, and I spent a lot of time in the chapel, and that was absolutely magical. But of the stations that I went to, they did different things at each one, and there were a lot of people, which I think is great for Columcille, because I think they have an important history and message. It was great to see. I didn't have my kilt on, but there were people wearing great kilts, sort of the traditional historical Scotland attire. So that was cool to see. And there are a lot of druidic influences. I know there were a few witches that were there as well. And I got to talk to different people. And I will say that it is a very welcoming community. So no matter what you are, what you believe, what kind of druid you are, or what kind of witch you are, or what kind of pagan you are, or whatever you are, if you're none of those things, everybody is super, super welcoming. And it's always really nice. I'm hesitant with groupie stuff, and I always, because for whatever reason my iPhone is totally dying and I can't have both Spotify and the game I play on my phone. So I didn't have Spotify, so I was able to because I needed the Bluetooth to work with my directions. I couldn't listen to music and listen to directions, so I had a silent 45-minute ride on my way home. So I was, really thinking about different things that had happened, that mean a lot to me, but, weren't part of the experience as it was designed. And the very first station you go to, you're in a circle of standing stones, and when I approach a standing stone circle, I always say a little prayer before I go in. I touch a stone and I say a little prayer, because to me it's holy space. And I say a prayer when I leave the space as well. And I touch a stone and I say a little thing in my head. And when you have like 200 people who aren't, they're not doing that, and it's okay that they weren't doing that. It's no judgment. But to me, it just was like, like a tour, like so. So there was that, and then I really wanted to see the moon. I wanted to be able to see the moon, so that put me behind where the leaders that were leading in. They had drums, and drums are always so powerful. And when I was standing there and I was looking at the moon, and then the guy who was leading the thing, who did a fabulous job, when he started speaking, like, this is so weird, in my head, and not in my voice, not in like the voice that you have in your head, that yourself talking to yourself, in another voice, female voice, it said, "This is how our people died." And I started to cry, and I was like, "Whew, what is that?" And I don't know if it's, a past life memory coming forward. Thousands of women were brutally murdered, tortured and murdered for accusations of witchcraft, both in England and in Scotland, and in the place where my family comes from, in Scotland. So I don't know if that was it or whatever, but I don't know, like, it just, like, it really struck me as, like, a very weird thing that happened. I typically don't like, and I don't know how to put this, like, and clearly this is something on me, call and response kind of things. Like, I'm going to say this, now you all are going to say that. I don't like that. And I think I don't like it because they do that in the church, right? Like, they tell you what prayers you can say, and then you feel that you can't speak to Spirit yourself. And I know that's not true, and I know that's not what these folks meant. Like, they did nothing wrong. It's more in my own thing. I just feel like I want to do my own thing. Let's put it that way. I want to do my own thing. So I'm always a little skeptical of organized stuff. And so that was making me uncomfortable, but I did participate. I did, I feel like I had, Witch in the Working had talked about, like, if you're going to go to if you're a witch and you go to a coven event, participate, I participated to the best of my ability. Let me say that. I hung back because I couldn't walk. I was very careful around the rocks and stuff. Like, the rocks were really hard, so I kind of stayed back so that I could see where I was and what I was doing. So I kind of stayed near the luminaries, and I liked listening to the stories. I'm skeptical. I don't like in crowds and out crowds. Let me go down this road, which I didn't like it in the church, and I was part of the in crowd. All right. I don't like this idea that there is, like, a chosen set of people who are like the in people, and then everybody else is like, well, you don't know Joe, you don't know Susie, well, don't you know blah blah blah. Like, I don't like that feeling of making people feel like they're not part of something, like they're not part of the in club or the popular kids or the whatever. I don't like it. I didn't like it in the church, and I was part of the in crew. I like being inclusive. I don't know how you do that for 200 people to make them all feel like they're part of it, and that there isn't this elitism. I really don't like elitism in anything, and my feathers all get ruffled up when I feel like there's elitism going on, and there wasn't. I mean, I want to be clear to say that it wasn't that anybody was behaving that way. It's just that I'm so on guard for it. The cool kids and the non-cool kids, and I just, I think I don't like group events because I expect that to happen. And I'm not a huge fan of that. So group things are hard for me. It's why I don't belong to a grove. It's why I don't belong, really to a church. I go to churches, but I prefer to go on my own terms. Advent's going to be coming up here soon, and I'll be going to church for Advent because I do like that tradition. I have a church that I like to go to here in Palmerton. It's not Anglican, it's Lutheran. But I like, I like the message of the Advent. I like preparing for the birth of Christ. So I feel like I definitely did, move out of my comfort zone, which is something I need to do. I was, focused on light and love. And it's funny, as I was praying in the chapel, I was thinking about, like, historically, just like how I've always been very focused on justice, and how I've always been focused on helping the underdog, and how I really am called to do things like the Red Cross and things like that, and work with victims of fire and victims of natural disaster. And And the Red Cross probably came up 3 times in my thoughts. That I like distinctively, like, this is why you are connected to the Red Cross. This is back when I was younger, I used to do historical reenacting for the Sanitary Commission, which is the precursor to the Red Cross. So I've always been very connected. And even as a child, as soon as I got my like advanced swimmer certificate, I could teach for the Red Cross. So I've been affiliated with the Red Cross since I'm like 12. And it's been a big part of my life, in and out of my life. So I get out to my car. I actually left before it was over because I simply just couldn't walk anymore. And it hurt so bad that I'm like, I just need to go to my car and sit down because I couldn't see where any of the benches were because there weren't lights or whatever. So I went out to my car and I looked at my phone. So I went out to the car, I looked down at my phone, and there were 3 messages from the Red Cross because they were getting ready to put together a shelter in a town near me because of a huge fire, and asked if we were available, which in theory I was. I just had to get home to get my Red Cross bag. And I thought, isn't it funny how Spirit works? Spirit's like, Red Cross, Red Cross, Red Cross, go to your car, go. And then I went to my car and there was Red Cross. So I like the experience. I probably will volunteer again, but maybe not stay for the ceremony, because I think I do my own thing and I'm very comfortable with the things that I do. I'm not ready yet for the group stuff. I think in the beginning when we were welcomed, it was like everybody was like cheering, like, yay, happy Samhain. Samhain is a reverent event to me. So it's an honoring of our ancestors and a memorial of our ancestors, and it's a somber event. And not that anybody did anything wrong, because their path is absolutely valid. But for me, and the way that I honor Samhain, I don't do, like, Beltane is the happy one. Samhain is the, like, more serious one, and it's the somber one, and it is, joy in the remembering of people, but it isn't get up and dance and whatnot. So I think the vibe just wasn't the vibe that I like for Samhain, for my own personal reflection and practice. So I probably wouldn't attend the event itself, but I definitely would volunteer and help for others to celebrate that. Because as Druids, we believe that everybody has a right to their own path, and you should help people on their path. So I'm certainly willing to help others on their path to celebrate Samhain that way. I don't prefer to celebrate it that way. My favorite part was sitting in the chapel by myself, staring at a candle, and talking to Spirit, which is what I like to do. That's my jam. That's who I am, and I accept that. I accept that that's who I am, and it comes from a long tradition of having to sit in church for 3 hours, and kneel for half of that, and that all adds into probably why I am the way I am now. So anyway, I'm wishing all of you the very best in light and love, and I will be back tomorrow for some last traditions and rituals that you can do for Samhain. And then, my friends, it's Samhain. All right, be well. All the best. Bye-bye.